Hey everyone, my name is Karl Goeltner, and today I'll be giving you guys a little bit of a talk on how to build your own agentic workflow with Orkes Conductor. Orkes Conductor is a platform to host your workflows and do a lot of workflow orchestration for any of your use cases, whether it be finance, business, healthcare, retail. We're able to support your use cases within our platform itself. And today we'll be kind of going through a sample application of how this can actually be done. As software engineers, we're often very used to the interview process, from coding challenges and recruiter screens to on-site technical rounds. It's structured, it's repeatable. So what if a workflow can manage the entire thing, from generating leak code style questions, scoring answers, giving feedback, and even sending the thank you email? Large language models are smart, but how do you actually get them to do stuff and to do them reliably? In this talk, I'll show you how to build an agentic interview application, a system that mimics a human-led technical interview using OpenAI, Google Docs, and SendGrid, all tied together with Orkes Conductor for orchestration. We'll walk through how you can design a workflow that makes decisions, loops over coding questions, evaluates answers, and handles all the tooling automatically. Let's get started. So, I'm going to first bring you guys to our awesome Conductor apps repo, which is actually our demo repo, which hosts a lot of our sample applications for any of you guys to go ahead and get started and up and running with Orkes Conductor. In this case, our interview agentic application is within the Python directory and within its own folder. So, reading the README, let's walk through a few of the prerequisite setup steps. So, first, you want to go ahead and go to developer.orkescloud.com to go ahead and set up your Orkes Conductor authentication key and secret. After you set up those credentials, you want to go ahead and jump over to OpenAI. Here at OpenAI, you want to generate your own OpenAI API key, and this will be used basically to generate your responses from the large language model for it to respond back to you in real time. From there, you want to go ahead and set up your Google authentication credentials. There are actually two ways of doing this. There is the local and prod method, and there's the local only method. Essentially, the differences between these two are whether you want to create a Google service account or use your own email to generate your Google Doc transcripts. We'll kind of go over a little bit of how this is done later on. If you want a simpler setup, I would recommend setup number 2. But if you want a more production-ready setup, I'd recommend setup number 1. And finally, step number 4, you're going to want to create your own SendGrid API key. Go ahead and jump over to this link, and this will basically be used to send emails to the user at the end of their interview process. After you go ahead and set up those environmental variables for yourself, you want to go ahead and start running the servers. You want to first trigger your backend server, and this will automatically run your Conductor workflow itself. And you also want to go ahead and run your front-end server. And this is basically the UI, the chat box for you to type in your responses and interact as the interviewee with the interviewer, who is the large language model. Essentially, there are 3 main components to this application. There is the backend server, which is used to wrangle data and input from the user itself and send it to the Conductor workflow. Component number 2 is the Conductor workflow. And component number 3 is the UI, the front-end visual interface, where you're going to be kind of interacting with the chatbot itself. So backend server, front-end server, and Conductor workflow. With these 3 components, you're going to be creating your own fully fledged application using Orkes Conductor. And go ahead and check out our source code here, which I've listed below. And we'll go over and touch about this briefly at the very end, which kind of goes over how to build your own Conductor application. So now let's go ahead and get started with the demo itself. Let's welcome ourselves to the software engineering interview at Orkes. It prompts us to type in our name. So let's go ahead and type in our name. And actually, it requires the programming language as well, but the workflow recognizes that we've missed that. So we're going to be reprompted. Once we're done with that, we're going to provide our email address. And once we're done prompting with the email address, we're going to go ahead and get started with the interview itself. We're first prompted with our first leak code style question, which is longest zero sum subarray, which is basically finding the longest continuous subarray with the sum equal to 0. Classic leak code style problem. Let's say we are a little bit stuck and we're going to ask the LLM for a hint. I'm going ahead and copy and paste this just so I can create an answer for us to answer at the very end. So the LLM recognizes that we want a hint and proposes several ideas in order to solve this problem. The first proposal was using a hash map, a dictionary, and iterating through the array itself. So let's say we've gone behind the scenes, we've thought through the workflow, we thought through the coding question a little bit more, and we're going to type in our answer. What's nice about this interface is that we're also using Markdown to basically format all the input and output that we're getting from ChatGPT itself. Now that it recognizes that we've successfully solved the question, we're going to move on to question number 2. In total, in this interview simulation, we have a total of 3 questions with a time limit of 45 minutes in total. So we're giving the second question, which is, given a list of integers, let's try to get the max profit between all the prices. So let's suggest, hey, let's possibly use a sliding window approach. Let's use a two-pointer approach. Can a two-pointer approach be used for this problem? And let's see what our large language model responds to us. It says that this is a common technique. However, let's try to make sure we're handling some other pieces of information in order to solve the problem itself. So once we've thought through the problem, let's copy and paste our solution. Let's see, we've successfully solved question number 2. Lots of LeetCode. And now we're moving on to question number 3. Question number 3 is max product subarray. Another classic LeetCode problem. Let's say we're a little bit stuck and we need maybe a re-explanation of the problem itself. Maybe the question itself is a little bit difficult to understand. Let's see what our interviewer responds to us with. So it actually provides us with 2 different examples, which will help illustrate the problem itself. Let's go ahead and read through this and see if we can get a better idea of how to approach the question. So once we've thought through the problem, let's go ahead and answer and leave our final response to the interview. Nice. We've now successfully solved the last question of our interview, and I think we should be done with our interview process. We should be done with the workflow itself. And there are actually some cleanup steps that are going to be done at the very end of the workflow, which I'll be showing you shortly. It says, congratulations, you've now successfully solved the coding challenge. The interview is now complete. So after the interview process is complete, I'm going to go ahead and check my email to see if I've gotten any responses. And immediately we see 2 emails generated from the workflow itself. Let's go ahead and click on the first one. The first one is a thank you email. A thank you email that lets us know that we appreciate your time interviewing with us at Orkes and solving the coding challenges using Python, which it recognizes from the workflow itself. It also provides us with a neat summary evaluation, which is something you usually don't get from a live interview process for a software engineering role. Usually that feedback is kept private and not given to the interviewee themselves, just to maintain confidentiality purposes. But in this case, we are actually getting our live feedback in real time. We are graded across all these different categories across a score of 5, and it provides a total score out of 30 as well across the 3 questions that we just answered. It provides a highest score and lowest score across those 3 questions, and provides the key strengths and areas of improvement as well. So this is a neat thank you email with personalized and customized information about your performance on the interview process too. Let's go ahead and reference the second email. The second email is actually providing us an interview transcript. Let's go ahead and click on this interview transcript. And in this interview transcript, we can kind of see this kind of live play-by-play between the interviewer and the candidate, which is us, answering the actual interview using the UI. And what's neat about this is that if you are, for example, a candidate and you wanted to reference back your performance, it's pretty easy to go back and check on your questions and your actual responses. If you're a recruiter, if you want to audit back your your workflow and see that everything is graded as you're expected. You can go ahead and reference this transcript as well. So another neat feature of our agentic workflow. And finally, I'm going to kind of go ahead and give you guys a brief overview about the actual workflow themselves. So first, this is the interview agentic workflow. This is kind of that main workflow, which handles that pretty much that entire process that you just saw. So for a high-level overview, we get the welcome message. We then prompt the user for their initial response on their name and their preferred programming language. In the second do while block, we're going to be prompting the user for their email. Notice how this is kind of nested within a do while loop, and it's evaluated using a large language model task to determine whether we want to move on from this current stage or we want to continue prompting the user again. And finally, once we've answered those preliminary questions, we go to the main interview loop. In this interview loop, we are essentially going to be asking 3 different questions, which are triggered in these sub-workflows. So let's go ahead and maybe click on that sub-workflow. So we've entered the core interview loop. To give a brief overview about what this is talking about, we are first generating the question itself. And after we've generated the question, we're nested in this do while block, and we are grading basically the interviewee's response on an LLM technique. And this LLM task is able to classify your response in 3 different categories. A simplification is needed, a hint is needed, or we are done, we're successful. And from there, we're able to basically determine whether we've reached overtime over 45 minutes, and basically we evaluate the response in live real time using another LLM task. So going back to the interview agentic workflow, we do this 3 separate times. And after we've evaluated and prompted the user for those 3 individual questions, we are then going to perform our cleanup tasks. And in this case, what we are doing is we're generating that scorecard for the email. We're also using a separate worker task to generate that live interview transcript. This is done using the Google Docs API. And we use a fork join, which is pretty useful to split upon those 2 separate branches, and we return our output accordingly. Here, we also have a little bit of a code sample, which is called prompts in a Python script, which basically stores all the LLM prompts, and we're able to use this in the workflow in real time. As you can see here, we're saving all these prompts and saving them according to the AI integration, which in this case is OpenAI. Here in the workflow.py, what's pretty critical is that we have these 2 main workflows that I just showed you, the interview agentic workflow and the core interview loop, saved as JSON files. And we are adding this to our platform in order to support them in real time. And finally, we have a workers.python script, which is used to basically use the Google Docs API to create a worker task, which essentially gets the credentials first and uploads the text to the drive as a doc and applies the proper Google Docs formatting. So you can kind of see that neat kind of play-by-play in real time between the candidate and the interviewer themselves. So yeah, you just saw how to build a complete agentic interview system from candidate intake to report delivery, all using LLMs and modern orchestration. You can feel free to try this out yourself using the free Orkes Developer Playground, and go ahead and check us out at developer.orkescloud.com. And if you want to check out a little bit more about this interview process, go ahead and check us out at Awesome Conductor Apps at Conductor Open Source. And thanks for watching, and I really appreciate your time. And let me know what you build next with Orkes Conductor.